Welcome to the Veterans Innovation and Entrepreneurship Program. I'm Sean Wilkerson, Innovation Development Program Manager in the Office of Innovation Outreach at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and I'll be your MC for today's program as we bring attention to the programs and services that support our veterans. Today's program will provide you with information and an opportunity to learn from our distinguished panelists who will work to promote growth and opportunities for the veteran community. Here at USPTO, we're also bringing attention to America's resources and have created the National Council for Expanding American Innovation, NCEAI. They are charged with strategizing new ways to expand American innovation by tapping into the strength of our nation's diversity and increasing the opportunities for all Americans to participate in innovation. For more information, log on to www.uspto.gov. During today's program, we will be accepting questions through the WebEx portal. If you look to the bottom right of your screen, you will see an area for questions to be submitted during the presentations. We will do our best to get to your questions at the end of each panel so that we can provide you with the information you need to be successful. If for any reason you get disconnected, you can log back into the program at any time. If you miss a portion of the program, don't worry. We will be posting the presentations online for you to review and re-engage with all of our speakers through our website. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to our keynote speaker. Florent Groberg currently leads the Azure Global Government Expansion Mission Solution Team at Microsoft. He's responsible for working with governments around the world to identify key missions and systems that should operate on the Azure cloud. He's a former Boeing executive, U.S. Army veteran, and recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Passionate about supporting the veteran community and focusing on education, transition planning, and career development. Please join me in welcoming Florent Groberg.
Thank you, Sean. Can you hear me good?
We can hear you and we can see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you to you for reaching out to me a couple months ago for this opportunity to share a couple thoughts with the group. It's an honor. I'm humbled that you would even want me to be a part of your program today. So thank you so much. And I want to start off by saying that, this year has been obviously incredibly challenging for all of us. I don't think that when we rang in the new year, we would ever expect to be in the position that we are in today. I'm an individual that usually travels for work almost weekly, and I haven't been on an airplane since February. So obviously my life has changed a little bit. But one of the most important parts of my life has been the time that I served in the military, and has really honestly taught me and given me the background experience, knowledge to overcome adversity on many different occasions. But before I get there, I figured I'd share a little bit about who I am and my background, why I joined the Army, and really what happened on August 8, 2012 and the years going on after that. I'm an immigrant. I wasn't born here. I was born in France. I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old. I'm adopted. My aunt adopted me, and then later on, she married this incredible man called Larry Groberg, who is my father, and he gave me his name and brought me here to the United States. Fun fact, so this is one of those things that if for some odd reason I ever come up in a conversation and, you can say, hey, I'm friends with Flo, fun fact is it took McDonald's and Michael Jordan to convince me to move to the United States. My father, when I was about 11, like I mentioned earlier, asked my mother if she was willing to move to the U.S. She said yes, but you have to get, credentials from Flo. He's got his family, his friends, his sports, his school. It'd be very difficult for him to, just pick up and move to a foreign country where he doesn't even speak the language. And so I'll never forget this. My father came into my room. I was playing Nintendo, and he asked me two simple questions. He said, Flo, would you like to eat McDonald's whenever you want? And I remember stopping and looking at him like, yes, of course. He's like, and would you like to meet Michael Jordan? I yes, were my answers immediately. I was super excited. I mean, Michael Jordan, even though I wasn't a basketball player, he was probably my favorite athlete behind Papin at the time, who was a soccer player from Marseille. And he said, well, for you to eat McDonald's and meet Michael Jordan, we have to move to the US. Are you good with that? I said, okay. Just like that, in less than 90 seconds, my allegiance to my family, my friends, my country, my sports, everything, my school went out the window from McDonald's and this character named Michael Jordan, which, by the way, to answer your question, yes, I met him. He walked past me once in 2001, but that's probably the closest I ever got to him. So we moved here and it was different, right? I didn't speak the language. We moved to Palatine, Illinois. Everything was just so foreign to me. Cars were bigger. I never lived in a house. And when we were in a house in the middle of the neighborhood, I didn't know where public transportation was at because there wasn't any. And I just felt like, I was just in this weird a sci-fi world. I remember the first TV show that I watched was Barney, and it freaked me out a little bit because there was this big, purple dinosaurs singing songs with kids, and I just couldn't understand what was happening. But it was also one of the most powerful experiences for me because it taught me how to really, for the first time, deal with something on my own that was outside my comfort zone. And by that, I mean the language barrier. I remember sitting there that summer and having no friends and just sort of following my parents around. And as an 11-year-old, it's not truly fun, right? You kind of want to go outside and play, and that was what I was used to. But my father challenged me, and he told me like, "Hey, I need you to go to the pool, and I want you to go by yourself, and I want you to go out there and meet people. Go play with kids and have fun. You can't just be cooped up in this house and following us around this whole summer." And I asked him, I said, sure, I'll go, but can you come with me? He said, no, you need to do this on your own. And as an 11-year-old, I didn't understand why that was his thinking process. And why couldn't he just come with me and help me, talk to folks and translate for me? But he gave me directions and I walked myself to that pool. And I remember thinking, all right, this is going to be interesting. And I have this little card. I gave the lady a little card and I went in and I made friends. And some odd reason, just because it was a language barrier, it didn't prevent me from actually interacting with folks and going having a great time. And that changed my entire mindset that in that specific moment, and that specific decision to go to be able to be successful in my transition into a whole new country and a whole new language. Fast forward a year later, we're in the Maryland area and I am in middle school. I'm in ESOL, so English as a second language courses. And I come home in February of 1996, and my father's at home, and it was really unusual concerning the fact that he usually got up before I woke up and was gone out of the house to go to DC, and he was home real late at night for his work. And my mom didn't work at the time, so when I came home around 2:30, I remember, not seeing my mother, but seeing my dad sitting on the couch and having him telling me, we need to chat. And I was super nervous. I was super nervous that something had happened to my mother because she wasn't obviously around. And that's when he told me that my uncle, who lived in Algeria, so in North Africa, had just been killed the day prior by a terrorist organization called the GIA. And that my mother took the first flight this morning back to Algiers to go, bury her brother. That news was one of the toughest news I've ever received in my life. You see, my uncle was one of my favorite people in the world. I loved him so much. I wanted to be him. Everything about him was, what I aspire to one day, achieve or be like as well. And he was a preacher of the Muslim faith. He was an imam who, when this terrorist organization came into his country and tried to pervert his religion, he decided to put his book down or, keep it at his heart and put on the uniform and go fight these enemies. And then on a ceasefire to observe Ramadan, his unit was targeted and ambushed and he was shot and he was beheaded. He was dismembered and he was put in a box. And he was sent to my grandfather as a warning. And that to me changed everything about my life. I was young, I was 12, about to be 13 years old. And I remember thinking, there is so much evil out there, and I just couldn't comprehend why and how people were so evil. I just didn't understand how a beautiful human being as my uncle could potentially be, killed that way and treated that way. And it changed everything for me. I never forget that night. I went in and took all my GI Joes and little figurines, soldier figurines that I had, and I put them in a bag and I threw them in the trash. My father asked me why did you do that? And my answer was simple. Um, I could no longer play army. That one day I would be just like my uncle and just like my father. I would put on a uniform and I would go fight evil. And so that is my path towards the army. That's how I started. Of course, you fast forward a few years, right? You go through high school, things change a little bit. And my goal was to get to college, run track, and do ROTC or go to Officer Candidate School right after. And then in 2001, here I am, a senior in high school, super excited, trying to figure out where I'm going to go to school. And I get naturalized as a U.S. citizen. So now I am adopted by this country. And it's one of the proudest and most exciting days of my life, because I feel so honored the fact that this country has brought me in and accepted me as one of its own. And then 5 months later, 9/11 happens. And I'll never forget that day when I saw the second plane hit and we started to understand the aftermath, thinking it's the same people who killed my uncle, terrorized my family in one part of the world. And here I am, adopted into this country, another part of the world, and the same type of evil is just following me around. I felt like many, it was very personal. And that cemented my path towards the military. It was a great lesson, though. That day, though, I remember being super emotional about it. Like many of us on this call were very confused, emotional, angry, frustrated, whatever you want to call it. And I called my dad when the phone lines finally opened, and I asked him. I told him, I was like, I'm dropping out of school. I'm going to go enlist in the army, and I need to go fight. Figure a way to support our military and our country and fight. And he told me something very specific. He asked me a very specific question. He asked, "What did I ask of you when I gave you my name?" And at that specific moment, I couldn't remember. And he repeated it to me. He said, when a Roberg starts something, he or she finishes it. Because the day when we find a way to quit is the day that we're going to quit everything else in our lives. And that comment made me angry, because it obviously didn't feel like he was supporting my decision to drop out of school. Instead, he asked me to make the tougher decision, which was to follow on my path and then continue on with my journey and then join the army. And he told me, Flo, this country, every time we get knocked down, we get right back up and we come back and hit with two folds. He's like, don't worry. Your brothers and sisters around you are going to go out there and fight that fight. You need to finish, get your degree, and then you can join them. And so I slept on it, and the next morning I called him back and I said, okay, I got it. As soon as I graduate, I'm going to go out there and join the military. And so that was my path. And then in 2008, it took a little bit of time for me to join the army, because I was a French citizen as well, and I need to renounce my French citizenship. And that took about 18 months from the French government to send me a nice little piece of paper. We'll go figure. But eventually, I made my way to the Army's ranks, and on July 1st, 2008, I was just shipped out to basic training at Fort Benning. And I went through my training just like anyone else would. I went through basic officer candidate school, basic officer leadership course, infantry basic officer leadership course, airborne school, which made me realize I was afraid of heights. I didn't know that until then. So that was a fun way to learn. And then ranger school, where I learned that 62 days of barely eating or sleeping is pretty tough. But if I had to pick one, I am a eat first over sleep type of individual. Didn't figure that one, because I like to sleep. And then I was in Afghanistan. And in my first tour, I was in Eastern Afghanistan, got to serve at 4th 4th Brigade, 212 Infantry Battalion. And I was a platoon leader for Dagger Company that was based out of COP Honaker, so Combat Outpost Honaker Miracle. And I will never forget when I first got to Afghanistan. I've been dreaming of that moment for years, right? I had all this anger inside, let's be honest. What happened to my uncle, what happened on 9/11, the many friends that I've had that went and fought this type of enemy over, those 6 years, 7 years. I wanted to do my part. I wanted to be there more than anything else in the world. I wanted to go out there and fight. But when I got there, and my battalion commander, my big boss, Lieutenant Colonel Pearl, told me that I would officially now take over a platoon with 24 men, and that their lives were my responsibility, and that I had to earn that right, and I had to guide them and lead them the right way and never cut corners. I'll never forget when I walked out of that room that my heart just sank. It sank because I was scared for the first time, truly the first time in my life. I was scared. And I wasn't scared of death. I was scared of making the wrong decision, and that decision killing, having some of my men being killed. And I didn't know what to do. Really, I was just I remember like shaking inside, and so the only thing I could think of was I got to call my dad and tell him this. Maybe he'll have some good advice. And so I went into our little USO center where they had a couple phones. I waited in line and I called him. I'll never forget his response. I told him exactly how I felt, and he told me, "Would you stop being weak? Look, you trained for this. You're ready for this. They gave you this job because they believe in you. So stop being scared. Go out there, find your most senior non-commissioned officer. Tell him that you're new, that you need his help to get you up to speed, and go do your job. And don't ever call me with this type of mindset." And he hung up on me. I remember thinking, did this guy? Did he just really hang up? I mean, this could have been our last conversation. Seriously? Like, what? And I followed his instructions. I said, all right, whatever. I mean, it's good advice. So when I got to my unit and I saw my number 2, Sergeant First Class Corey Staley, I remember the first thing I said to him was like, "Sergeant, my name's Lieutenant Groberg." And his response to me was, "Roger that, sir. I can read your name tag." And I remember thinking, wow, this is a great first impression. That worked out exactly as I planned. But instead, I told him this. I said, "Listen, I'm coming to talk to you about the fact that I need your help, I need your guidance, and I need your mentorship for me to be successful in this role. The only thing that I want to do is accomplish the mission while bringing everyone home. So I'm taking my pride, my rank, and I'm putting them to the side. I need you to guide me and mentor me." And I think he was taken back by that. He looked at me and he said, "All right, sir, so I'm going to need you to shut up over the course of the next 7 days. We're going to go out on patrol. We're going to get hit. I just need you to watch the way we react to contact, watch the way we communicate internally, listen to the way we communicate internally, listen to the way we communicate back to base and call for fires. And then just go do a lot of reading, read about all the engagements we've had over the course of the last couple of months. Then go talk to the men, figure out where they're from, why they joined the Army, but don't get too close to them. Finally, you'll get a brief from the company commander, and you and I will put together a plan based off his intent, and we'll brief it to the team, get their input, finalize the plan." Like, "Sir, give me 7 days. I'll give you a platoon ready for your leadership, and I'll always be by your side." That, to me, taught me so much. Corey, single-handedly changed my life in those 5 minutes, in a 5-minute conversation. I learned about leadership. I learned about humility. I learned about game planning. Here I was, a guy with no experience, and he'd had 15 years with multiple tours to include Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's got a new guy coming in with no experience, and I'm his boss. And instead of being angry about it, instead of being frustrated about it, he just took the time to give me a game plan, and he committed himself to supporting me and supporting my success because it brings success to the entire team. That's something I've never forgotten. That's something that to this day I hold close hold, and it guides me and it teaches me how to be a more effective team player, leader, and also follower. And so I took that, I kept it in, I listened to his instructions, and over the course of the next 9 months, we were in over 200 engagements, and we all came home. I'll never forget when I set foot back on U.S. soil in July of 2000, I think June or July of 2010, how much I love this country. And it was because of its people. it was because of the men and the women that I fought with in on that specific tour, and it made me realize that I was willing to die for them, and they were willing to die for me, and that's something that I never understood until I went through those specific experiences. I went through firefights. I went through looking at someone in the eyes, and when bullets are flying around us or where bombs are exploding, and just having full confidence that that person was going to be there for me. And it made me so proud to be an American. It made me so proud to be an Army member. It made me so proud to be a teammate and wear the uniform. And so I was super fired up for the next tour. And the next tour, I was selected to run the personal security detail for the battalion, the brigade commander at the time, Colonel Mingus. And we went back to the same area in Afghanistan. But that tour was different. I had a specialized team of 5 other individuals, so a team of 6, and our job was to coordinate and support and protect the boss across 6 different provinces and 45 different outstations around eastern Afghanistan. And so every day I flew in Black Hawk helicopters or Chinooks. I saw Afghanistan from a very different perspective. I sat in meetings with top leadership on the military side as well as on the Afghani side and some of our foreign partners and U.S. government individuals, and I got to truly understand the mission in a very different way, and it was unbelievable. But things really took a turn on August 8, 2012. That's when we were going to a Kunar Provincial Security meeting with Governor Wahidi. That meeting happened every Wednesday at the same time. And we didn't go there every Wednesday. Obviously, we didn't want to set a pattern for the enemy. But let's be honest, in Asadabad, not much happened. It was as green as it gets in terms of area. And by green, I mean safe as it gets in terms of area of operations in that part of the world. But on that day, as we arrived at Combat Outpost Fayas, where we landed our helicopters, and then we decided to leave the base and walk 1,100 meters on movement on foot to the governor's compound for the meeting, we were targeted by 2 suicide bombers. They created a diversion with a motorcycle coming straight at us, and then there were structures to our left, and one of the individuals walked out, and as we were focusing on the motorcycles, he tried to get as close as he could to our patrol. Luckily, I was in a position where I saw him and I reacted towards him. I remember looking at that young man, I don't know, maybe 18, 19, maybe 17, and looking at him and thinking, what is wrong with him? Where do you come from and what is wrong with him? And when he started coming towards us, I looked into his eyes and I just saw hatred and fear. And I remember thinking in my head at that specific moment, I can't see a weapon, so I can't engage in my rifle. But I don't like what he's doing, and he's a hell of a threat. So I created my own escalation of force, and I started sprinting towards him. I yelled at him, said some really interesting words to him, and I hit him. When I got to him, I hit him across the chest with my rifle as hard as I could. And when I hit him, I felt that he had something on his chest. And so at that moment, all I could think about was the individuals that I was surrounded by and I was serving, I was protecting. It was Colonel Mingus, Colonel Walrat. It was Command Sergeant Griffin. It was Major Gray. It was Reggae. It was my team, Ochart, Valderrama, Secor, Brink. And all I could think about was, I got to get this guy who is now wearing a suicide vest. I realized that away from everyone as quickly as possible, as far away as possible. And so I drove him, threw him, and he landed on his chest and he detonated. My world went black real quick. The last thing I saw was something come out of his hand. So he had pressed the trigger, and I think he was so scared himself that he never let go. Even when I hit him and I threw him, and he had a dead man's trigger. That means he was committed. And the last thing I saw was just his hand opening up and something coming out of it. And then everything went black. August 8, 2012 was the worst day of my life. I lost 4 friends: Command Sergeant Major Griffin, Major Gray, Major Kennedy, and Ray Guy. I lived, even though a guy blew up at my feet. 4 of them died when they were 20 to 30 meters away. That's war. It's dirty. It's unpredictable. It's unfair. It has no mercy. I spent the next 6 months at Walter Reed Hospital recovering from my injuries, and I went through some really difficult times there. I had survivor's guilt. I tried to replay the scenario over and over again in my head. I wanted to understand why I was alive and these 4 weren't. I wanted to be able to explain to their families what I could have done better. And I wanted to understand why God had kept me on this earth and taken 4 family men, community leaders, individuals who had done so much for their country and their communities, while I, being a young man at the time, 29 years old, was just starting. I had done nothing compared to them. Nothing. I couldn't comprehend it. And then you add in the medicine, ketamine, oxys, morphine, Dilaudid, and then you start creating a lot of demons in your own head. And so I fought my 3rd war, my 3rd deployment in my own head. During those 6 months where I was slowly but surely being defeated. And unfortunately, this enemy this time knew every single centimeter, inch of me. It was me. And when I was just about to give up, I found the strength to let someone come in and really show me the light. And that was Travis Mills. He taught me and reminded me of my purpose on this earth, but really the oath that I took to serve this nation. And the honor that I had going forward to talk about our fallen comrades and to honor their families and to make sure that it's not in vain, but that we get to remember the true heroes in our nation, who are the men and women who put their lives on the line to make sure that we live free. And I never forgot that. It changed my life again. And I made a promise on that day, on November 12, 2012, that I would never again complain about my injuries or my situation, that instead I would go forward and mention their names, and that I would earn the right to still be on this earth. Just like I wanted to earn the right to call myself an American by serving my nation in a time of war, this time I had a bigger calling, which to earn the right to still be on this earth breathing when others gave their lives for me. And so I decided to go out there and challenge myself in different ways. And one of those ways was to figure out what the heck my next passion was going to be, right? I'm limb salvage, so I'm missing 50% of my lower left calf, and I'm deaf on the left ear, which, to be honest, is a really great advantage to me at a lot of times. And I had a pretty severe brain injury at the time, but I healed. And so after my recovery, I remember thinking, well, I can't do my job anymore. So what is my passion? And so I had to figure out a way to transition out of the military, but successfully. And I remember thinking, what do I bring to the table? Seriously, I was just an infantryman, right? I was good at putting plans together, leading men and women in combat. I was good at improvising on the spot. I was good at, debriefing. I was good at understanding a situation and really putting it on paper and create a plan behind it. I was good at delegating. I was good at these things, right? I wasn't great. I was good. And this is what the expectations of being an officer in the military, specifically in an infantry unit. But I wasn't. I was a criminal justice major at the University of Maryland. Great school. But really, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an aerospace engineer. I'm not a software engineer. I don't have a law degree. I'm not a doctor. It's like, man, what do I do? And how do I get there? And so it kind of hit me. I'll never get this. I just remember thinking, well, I really don't have those answers. So I guess I got to find someone who's sort of walked my walk and can potentially and has successfully transitioned and it can maybe help me. So that was a mentor. So the first thing that I did was, you know, I went around and I went seeking mentors, individuals who were had similar background, who had successfully transitioned. I didn't care what industry. I just wanted to hear their stories. Like, what did you first do? And I was lucky enough that that mentor was someone I'd just been connected with, and he was working with. He had a company called Intelligent Waves out of Reston, Virginia, and he had this nonprofit called Warriors Ethos that helped individuals like myself actually, transition out, find their next passion, gather the right skill sets, whether it's going through a course or internship. And so I got in contact with him, and the first thing that we did is we took a piece of paper, and I'm not even sure if this WebEx thing, so there's a piece of paper right here, and I split it in two, right? So just like that. And then I put 10 things I love to do and 10 things, so 10 things I love to do and 10 things I don't like to do. And one of the main one for things I don't like to do is I don't like to sit in front of the computer for 8 hours a day behind a cubicle. And things I love to do is I love to travel, I love to be around people, I love to be outdoors. And then I went through my list of 10 different things. And guess what we did after that? We started eliminating potential career fields. It's like, well, you hate doing this, you don't like doing this, you don't like doing this. That takes this job, this job, this job, this job, this job out. You love doing this, you love doing this, you love doing this, love doing this. Okay, that takes this, this is a really good opportunity. And, through my learnings of what he did and how he did it, to him guiding me and giving me some really good advice along the way, to me networking with different individuals in different industries that we've identified as potential fits for me, I finally found something that was incredibly passionate for. And it didn't take me as long as I thought it would. I went into the government, stayed in government because I still wanted to serve my country. I wanted to go outside and I wanted to be able to meet people. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be part of the mission. I wanted to do something that mattered, but I didn't care if it had a lot of visibility or not. And so I went into the clandestine sector. I went in to become a spy. And I was more involved in actually supporting the defense of our nation and our people than ever before. I fell in love with that job. And it took a network, it took a mentor, it took an understanding of what I wanted to do, but really most importantly, an understanding of what I did not want to do for me to get there. And then after that, I worked my butt off, right? I didn't quit when things got tough. I didn't allow obstacles to become, walls. I instead figured out ways to overcome them, right? And I had a mindset that was, I need to go out there and do it. I need to earn it because I'm being given a second chance at life. And life, if I've known anything about life, is that it's difficult, it's challenging, but it's also rewarding. And so I went on and did that for a little bit of time before I received the medal. And so I wanted to show you this. You probably can't see it, but that job unfortunately had to come to an end because on November of 2015, I received the Medal of Honor. And so there it is. Quick background, this is not the actual medal that I received from the President of the United States. The actual medal that I received from the President of the United States was returned to my unit at Fort Carson, along with Clint Romesha, another Medal of Honor recipient. We followed Sal Junta's leadership when he returned his to the 173rd. I'll put it back here, actually. This is a cool thing about COVID-19 is that I see no one right now, and so to me, the only screen that I see is says Sean Wilkerson is completely gray. So I feel like I'm just talking to myself, but it's all good. So I'm just going to get up and do my own things, like drink water. But receiving a medal changed my life again because I could no longer be in the profession that I was in. So it went back to the drawing boards, and in this case, it was what's next? And so I went back to what I wanted to do, and I did my list again. I started networking, and I realized I really wanted to be a part of the veteran community. And I was approached by LinkedIn. I was super nervous about the idea of even supporting any type of tech companies because I didn't have a tech background again. But I took a chance. I worked with Greg Hall, who is a U.S. Marine Corps captain, who went in and started the LinkedIn Veterans Program, and together we just created these campaigns with Nick Bartle, their CMO, and we touched thousands and thousands of different veterans and their families. And we talk about the importance of transitioning. We talk about the importance of having veterans join their organization and what we brought to the table, how our experiences in the military, our training, our teachings, our discipline, our organizational skills, our mission-centric mindset, our work behind closed doors when no one's watching and being the best that we potentially can, the integrity that we bring, how that brings value to an organization, how we're adaptable, but most importantly, how we evolve, right? How we're teachable. These were, characteristic traits that are super important, that we can be molded into whatever we need to be molded within that specific organization. And we went around the country and talked about it. We did commercials together. It was amazing. And it gave me a better understanding that, oh my gosh, like I am not just designed to be in the military or the government. I can actually go in and interact with folks who have, PhDs and who are like 26 years old and they're techies and they're living out there in Palo Alto and, working for the LinkedIns, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, and I can connect with them, right? And I have so much to learn from them. I can share my experiences, but I can take some of their experiences back to allow me to grow and build and expand my network. And so that changed my mindset again. It got me completely exposed to a new world, a world that honestly, if you had asked me 5 years prior, I would have told you dead on the spot that would never happen. I'll never work with tech. No way. I don't bring anything to the table. They don't want anything to do with me. I'm a grunt. I'm an infantryman. There's nothing that I can do or I'm experiencing right now or doing right now that's going to bring value to those organizations. And here I was in Palo Alto, sitting there talking to hundreds of different folks and making a difference. And they were making a difference for me. And so that just rewired me. And I got fired up. I got excited. So I started taking these lessons learned that I've had over a course of a very short period of time now, let's say 2 years. And I started applying them to my next roles, right? And that's when I went to Boeing. And at Boeing, I ran the veterans programs for 18 months, also did some disaster recovery, environmental remediation. Again, no background in those. And then finally, I became the chief of staff for the CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes. I'm not an aerospace engineer. I don't have an engineering background, but here I was working directly for the CEO of a 60 plus $1 billion business with 70,000 employees and running his operations, working with his 22 of his top senior vice presidents. And the reason he hired me is because I had discipline. I understood how to program management. I understood program management, but I really understood how to connect with people from multiple different cultures, and I understood diversity. And that's something that today, looking back, is the proudest thing that I've ever gone through or come to understand, is working with diversity. I learned that in the military. Yes, of course, look at me, right? But I really learned that in the military. And I will never forget when we were having dinner and he told me the main reason he hired me, because he knew that I would come in and that I would be able to tell him the truth. I wouldn't be as scared of his answers. I wouldn't sugarcoat things. And I would go out there and make things happen because that was just in my DNA, my military DNA. But he also told me, Flo, you have so much diversity. I mean, from where you're from, your culture, but really what you learn in the military. You work with individuals that were from Massachusetts to Compton, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, straight, gay, religious, non-religious, atheists, and you all were put together in remote parts of the world. And against, at times, all odds, you came together, you loved each other, you fought for each other, you died for each other, and you became best friends. That to me is the definition of diversity, coming in together, not caring who you are, what you look like, but loving each other and respecting each other. And he really taught me something that I lived by, but didn't understand at that moment. And it opened up another, whole mindset for me. And really, in this case, it wasn't about me. It was just about us. It was about what the military brings. You look at today, what we're going through in this world, how divided we are. There are many of us here who are very divided. If we can just take a page out of that playbook from our military, a page that many of us here have lived through, that we tend to forget, and how we were able to put our differences aside and work together on a common goal and come to understand each other, trust in each other, respect each other, and love each other, our country would be in a better place. It would. But, here I was now in this commercial business, and I was loving it. Travel the world, get to meet, with presidents and leaders all around the world. And I get to be, take part in some really big campaigns and programs within the company. I got to be a leader in this company. It taught me so much. And then finally, this past year, this year in January, something even crazier happened to me. Remember that thing I talked about, building a network? That's very important. But building a network is step one. Maintaining that network is the most important part, and you need to remember, right? It's just like any type of relationship, right? You need to keep it strong. You need to connect. You need to share. You need to listen. And I try to do the best that I can when it comes down to my network. And in this case, my network brought me to Dan Goldberg with Call of Duty, and then Sean Kelly, who was just about to retire from Amazon as one of their top recruiters. And Dan and Sean came to me with this idea of creating a character in Call of Duty for charity. And I thought that was amazing. Like, hold on, you want to put me in a video game and we're going to raise money? And they're like, yep, let's do it. So we did that, right? I was in the latest Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We raised $3 million, I think, in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And then they took my character out, right? Because it was just all for charity. No one took a dime, right? They put a heck of a lot of money into it to make this happen. And we raised those funds. But it was during that period of time that I had an opportunity to understand that maybe I had another path in my own career. And it wasn't video games or creating characters, but it was understanding, what I could do in the tech world. And it all started with Sean, who Sean told me, listen, Flo, this is what you bring to the table. You should really think about when getting back into the warfighting fight, about supporting our government, supporting our foreign partners, supporting our public sector, supporting our healthcare, supporting our public safety and justice. And he's like, you need to think about tech. You need to think about AWS. You need to think about Microsoft. You need to think about Facebook, Google, but you really need to think about it. And guess what I did? I went back to my old flow and I was like, I don't bring anything to the table. And he shut me down right off the bat. He said, absolutely not. Wrong answer. Try again. And we talked about it and I said, listen, I'm not looking. But if the right opportunity presents itself, I'll entertain it. And he said, stay open, have those conversations. And then he worked his magic, I guess. And next thing you know, I'm interviewing with, I'm connecting and interviewing with Facebook. I'm connecting and interviewing with Microsoft. Unbelievable individuals that I had the opportunity to talk to. And they're fired up about what I can bring to their teams. And I remember thinking in the back of my head, like, are these people like serious? Like, they really want me to be a part of their team? And it all came down to an opportunity with Microsoft, with Tom Keene, that was focused on mission and supporting not only our U.S. government and our U.S. infrastructures, but also our foreign partners around the world. And there was something that, even though I love Boeing, and Boeing has given me so much, and I love that company to death, and I can't wait till they get, that airplane back in the air and that, things get better, because they deserve it. Great American company, great people. This was my calling. And it happened because I had a network with me, and that network came through. And so today I am here. I work for Azure Global Government at Microsoft. I work missions around with our foreign partners. And so it took me a long. It's been a long ride so far. I'm still young, so a lot to go. But I wanted to share this moment that I'm a true infantryman. I'm a grunt, right? And I'm a grunt that thought that I didn't have the opportunities to go do bigger and better things in the world because I didn't bring that background to these organizations. And I got to work in aerospace, and I'm currently working in tech. I got to work for our government. I've been surrounded by amazing people around this country and the world, and I've been supporting and supported by so many different nonprofit organizations. So I'll close out with this. Greatest honor I've ever had in my life was the opportunity to call myself an American. The greatest responsibility that I will ever have going forward is to make sure that I earn it. And I earn the breath that I am currently taking right now because too many men and women have put their lives on the line for me and all of us. And their families have to live with those consequences. So that medal that's behind me, it's a great reminder of what this country stands for. It's not mine, it's all of ours. And it's for the men and women who never came home. Thanks for the opportunity. I know, Sean, we're going to be take a couple questions. It's good to see your face.
Laurent, thank you so much for your story. And I truly can't thank you enough for your service and your dedication to everything that you're doing for veterans. As you know, my personal connection to this program is my father. He is former Marine, but once Marine, always a Marine, and he is a disabled veteran. And programs that you talk about and things that you're doing would have helped my father to be more successful. And I appreciate what you're doing to help the veteran community. Now, with that, I do have some questions for you. And the first being, what were the biggest struggles you faced when transitioning from the military into the civilian workforce?
So this is a fun one, I'll tell you. And since it was like I see you, so it's just you and I, right? I mean, there's probably no one else on this call, so I'll just tell you. It's not tell everyone else. Probably, one dressing. How I dress. Honestly, I was super nervous, and heck, to this day, I am. It's crazy. Like I'm like, okay, what's business casual? What do they mean? Do I come in? Is that a tie? Is that no jacket? Is that what kind of shoes? Things like, make sure your belt color matches your shoes. Don't mix, patterns and colors. And, this is business casual in Washington, D.C., which pretty much is everything, a suit without a tie, right? Versus a half crop shirt potentially in San Diego, whatever it is. But to me, that was actually a very interesting moment because I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to talk the talk. And one of the first things that I did wrong was in my first internship with Jared that I mentioned, at Warriors Ethos. I went into a meeting and I had a water bottle. And so for many of you who have served in the military, that, chewing tobacco is sort of a norm, specifically in the infantry world. And so I was still chewing tobacco and I didn't think about it, in all my meetings in the Army, everyone was chewing tobacco. So I finished my water bottle in the middle of this board meeting. And I took my can of Copenhagen and I tapped it and I opened it up and people stopped their meeting watching me put their lip in and I started spitting in the cup. And then Jared stopped the meeting for a second. He's like, hey, everybody, take a break. Can I get some water? And he came up to me. He's like, all right, so can't do that. You can't do that. So proper etiquette, right? And so it was funny, but really the dressing, the communication, the understanding, and was really difficult for me at first. I wouldn't say difficult. It was different. But again, having people around me, mentors, and I'll leave with this. When I got to Boeing, the first thing I did is I got my number two, which was Bartel, and I asked him to sit next to me when I was writing back emails to my leadership to make sure that I was speaking the Boeing language, right? So I learned really early on that find yourself, it doesn't matter if they work for you or they're your bosses, but find yourself someone you can trust to help you, guide you through those, different, new waters at first.
Absolutely. Talk a lot about people who helped you along the way, and Travis specifically. And his story, like yours, is an amazing story. And one thing that I am just fascinated by is your positive attitude. So I'm curious, how do you find ways to stay positive in negative situations, and how has that helped you in your corporate role?
So let's be honest, I wasn't always that type of individual, right? That's why I went through such a really rough time early on in my recovery at Walter Reed. I allowed the negativity to take over, and I saw how close it got. It got me to ending it all. And so Travis Mills was one of these first individuals. I walked into my room, and it's kind of funny because I just put this to I've been speaking for quite a few years now, and I just put this two and two together. He walked in my room on November 12th, 2012. I received a medal on November 12th, 2015. So super interesting how that kind of weirdly not happened, right? It's a coincidence, but when he walked into my room in that November, it changed everything about me because I saw a man with missing four limbs, and he had a smile on his face. He had a positive attitude. He was grateful to be here on this earth, and he saw us having a purpose and a mission to really empower and encourage and support others who are going through really tough times, whether or not it's military injuries. It doesn't have to be military, right? It could be anything else. That in every situation, we need to focus on a positive. And if you can do that, then you'll get through all these different obstacles. It might not happen overnight, it might be very difficult. It's a time period, but you can do it. And that was a big lesson for me. And so I take that into account every step of the way that I go through now. If I'm having a tough day at work, take a deep breath, walk away. I don't get angry, and I try to figure out, okay, what's the one positive in this? Well, X, right? And then I focus on that, and I let that become my energy. And then I go back and I just rewire myself, and I go forward.
That's amazing. Thank you. One of the questions coming in from something you said was about networks and how they're so important. The question coming in is, how did you find your initial network? What opportunities were provided by the military, and what organizations helped you outside of the military?
So when I was, my initial network was, I was at Walter Reed, so I was lucky, right? Because I had more access to different groups and organizations. So, Wounded Warrior Project, at the time was going through a really rough moment, right? But they were still out there at the hospital helping us. General Lincoln, was going to take over, and that was a good organization to help me. But it really happened internally at the hospital when it was with Rory and SOCOM, and they were taking care of those SOCOM folks, and they came to me and introduced me to Jared because they understood like, hey, you probably are going to need to medically retire, and so we needed to set you up with a game plan. And I didn't know where to start, so I went to I went to that group, listened to them, I trusted them, and I gave it a shot. And let's be honest, at first with Jared and his team, I didn't feel like it was going to go anywhere. I actually kind of shut down communication after my first meeting because I was really convinced I'd go back in the service anyway. And then 6 months later, I came back to it. I said, you know what, that guy, he was an infantryman. He was a sniper, and I just want to wonder how he started his own tech company and how he got so successful. So I called him, and we had lunch, and then we started talking about the opportunities. That's when he shared with me the split the page and get 10 plus, 10 negatives, right, of things that you want to do. And then he started introducing me to his network, who introduced me to their network, and I started building it. But I didn't focus on I was very strategic on how I built the network, right? I didn't try to meet 40 different people because I understood that would be way too many. So I really focused on the people that I wanted to learn something from at the early on, and then later on, things that I could, things that I didn't understand. People who lived a completely different lives or different, worked in a different industry, and I wanted to I was just curious about, and I wanted to gain their perspective on what I was trying to do.
Amazing. So, curious, what do you see as the biggest challenge working with veterans today? What do you find that they face moving into the workforce, and what challenges do you see that they're facing that you can share best practices on how to overcome for somebody else?
Well, I think it's the first one is the most common one is understanding what we bring to the table, right? I had that issue, and I was lucky again because I was in an environment where people kept, I was introduced to different folks and organizations, and I really had the time, right? So, one thing I didn't bring up in the conversation earlier is when I realized I was going to transition out, I also understood that I needed to further my education. So I went in and started my master's degree online at the University of Maryland University College. And then I knew that I was really interested in intelligence services and I was interested in policies. And I needed a background more in management, right? Because I'd been an officer. So obviously I have some background in management, but I needed to really get an educational background as well. So I went to get my master's. And so that started building one more network. But it was just, the whole, understanding of like, I need to take these steps and I need to be very disciplined. And I believe they're going to get me here. But one of the problems is a lot of our troops, they just don't know what the opportunities are and they don't know what they bring to the table. And so they immediately eliminate so many different, career fields because they think that I didn't go to school or I didn't go to school to study this. My job in the military only did this. And so that means I can only transition to, that type of field. Or, I just don't feel confident that I'll ever be successful in doing this, right? Or I'm not going to like it. It's not for me. I never thought I would ever work in cloud computing, ever. You couldn't have paid me enough money back then when I was in 2009 to tell me that I would ever work in cloud computing, right? I love it. I truly love it. I love my company. I love my team. I love what we're doing. And it's something that, I needed to go out there and trust myself that I could do and experience and give it a shot.
Awesome. Now, the next question is going to relate to that. For those people coming out, transitioning, finding mentors, what helped you and who helped you find mentors, and what books and or videos did you use that helped you in your process as well to help you find a mentor? And are you open to being a mentor?
So, one, I'll answer the last one. I am always open to being a mentor. I am a mentor. I am a mentee. And really, what I worked on, it wasn't books and videos, to be honest with you. It was human connections. And so, asking anyone around me, just being very curious, that started. But LinkedIn was a big part. LinkedIn was a really, really big part. That's why I became a spokesperson for LinkedIn, because I truly believed in what they were doing. That is where I connected with people that I hadn't talked to in a long time. That is where I got to see folks who I serve with who are now at transition, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy, he works for Raytheon. Oh, he works for, Morgan, JP Morgan Chase. Wow, how did he get there? And so you start connecting. Someone else to be like, hey, buddy, how'd you get there? And what's your process? And so you start understanding like, oh, wow. So that is a way to do it, or that's a program to go do it. Now, the military for officers is you have more opportunities for officers in terms of like they have these programs that come in and they do these boot camps and they take you to these career fairs and all that stuff. I know that they're working now with enlisted folks, which should have been in the case from the get go. But to me, that was sort of like that process of, all right, I'm going to go out there and talk to people, and I'm going to put myself out there. It's like dating, right? And then so there's two ways of dating. You can do it right. You go to the bar and just put yourself out there and meet people, and hopefully you find someone, or you can do it online, right, through a LinkedIn platform, right, or Match.com. So it's just kind of the way you can do it. So there's no excuse, right? But you got to put yourself out there. You got to take a chance. You can't be afraid of being rejected. And someone rejects you, screw them. I mean, they don't belong in your world anyway.
No, that's a great way to look at it. And it's interesting you said, dating, because I did read how you met your wife, and you both almost didn't go to meet your friends at the bar, and that's how you met.
It's
So I
true.
think that's a great way to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've read and watched everything on you, so I feel like I know you very well. But at this time, I just want to wrap things up. Is there anything you'd like to say to anyone who is making that transition now? Any last words of advice before we have to part ways?
Don't give up. Ever give up. There are going to be moments where you're going to do multiple interviews and people are not going to understand you and you're going to get really frustrated. It's going to be hard and you're going to feel like I can't ever get a job and you're going to feel like you can't, I guess like, I can't find, my passion or my purpose. Don't ever give up because what you've done, you put on your uniform, you serve your country honorably, you put yourself
Oh, Okay.
You see
I'm
there?
not sure if we still have.
My back?
You're back. I can hear you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Xfinity and Comcast, for shutting down my internet at least
There you
twice
are.
a day for like 5 seconds. But yeah, don't give up. That's my comment. Work hard, build that network, put yourself out there, and I call it. I always like being a fruit fly or a gnat, right? You know how annoying they are. Like you just want to go out there and smash them, right? That's who I was when I really wanted to get somewhere, because I would just go out there and find these people and just keep asking questions and keep going out there, and be like, hey, help me, help me. And just be that type of individual. Why? Because I knew that was the way to get there, and I never wanted to quit. So don't ever give up. Go out there, do it. You deserve it. You belong, and we want you and need you.
Thank you. Thank you, Florent, for being part of the program today. Thank you for sharing your time with us. You're an inspiration. I want to thank you again for your service and your leadership that you provide to help veterans. And thank you for being a role model. And I know my nephew's excited that I got to talk to you because he plays Call of Duty. And that was a big moment for him. He's like, Uncle Sean's going to meet this guy. This is incredible. So I got bonus points there. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And with that, I will say thank you again. And have a great day. We're going to transition into our next panel. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. As we get set up for our next panel, I'd like to remind everyone that we are accepting questions through the WebEx portal. If you could please focus your questions to the panel that is focused on the panel right now that we have available, that would help us to make sure that we get questions answered for you about any of the services or any of the organizations that they talk about. Now, we are accepting those questions through the WebEx portal. If you look to the bottom right of your screen, you'll see an area for questions to be submitted during the presentation. We will do our best to get to all of your questions so that we can provide you with information to be successful, but if you can please keep them related to the panel that is present at this time. If for any reason you get disconnected, you can log back into the program at any time. If you missed any portion of today's programming, don't worry. We will be posting the program online through our website, so you can always re-engage or reinforce what you've learned today through watching the presentations on our website. At this time, it's my distinct pleasure to start with our next panel and introducing our moderator, Larry Stubblefield. Larry is the Associate Administrator for the Office of Veterans Business Development at the U.S. Small Business Administration. At this time, I'd like to turn the panel over to Larry, who will introduce the program panel and also introduce the panelists for today.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Sean. I'm very honored to moderate today's panel of distinguished innovators. Before I turn it over to the panel and have them introduce themselves, I just want to talk a little bit about what we do at SBA for veteran entrepreneurs. So in the Office of Veteran Business Development, our mission is to empower transitioning service members, veterans, military spouses, reservists, and National Guardsmen with the tools that they need to either start, grow, or expand a small business. So how do we do that? We focus on helping them with access to capital. We provide training and business counseling, and we also help them prepare for government contracting opportunities. We use an extensive resource partnership network, if you will, which includes our 22 veteran business outreach centers located around the country. There's over 900 small business development centers that we work with as well, and our women business centers, and 10,000 SCORE mentors located with the SCORE chapters, in addition to our 68 district offices. So probably our flagship program, and probably most people have heard about it, is our Boots to Business program. And the Boots to Business program is part of the DoD Transition Assistance Program, and it's a 2-day introduction to entrepreneurship. I'm really happy to let the audience know that since the inception of Boots to Business in 2013, we've had 124,000 participants go through that program. So right now we're at SBA, we're very involved in terms of helping the small business community recover from the pandemic. So I like to just talk about 4 phases, if you will, and that's response, recovery, helping them build resiliency, and then in some cases helping them reinvent themselves. So that's a little bit about what we do at SBA for entrepreneurship. And so I'm looking forward to moderating today's panel. As I said earlier, today's network and resource panel will provide an opportunity for viewers to discover organizations and resources that promote, support, and assist veteran inventors and entrepreneurs in the innovation ecosystem who are looking to learn how to get engaged or best practices to move forward. So at this time, I want to introduce the panel, if you will. We have Brad Paisley, who is the CEO he's the CEO and founder of Building Momentum. Brad is a Navy veteran. We also have Blake Hogan on board with us today. He's the CEO at Bunker Labs. Blake is a Marine Corps veteran. And next I want to turn to James Raybuck. James comes to us from the National Security Innovation Network, and he's going to have to tell us what service he is. And then last but not least, I want to introduce Samantha Snaves, who's the co-founder and catalyst at RE3D Incorporated. So at this time, Samantha, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. Well, full disclosure, I'm not a veteran yet because I have the honor of serving as an officer in the Air National Guard and Mississippi Air National Guard on the weekends. And during the week, I'm the co-founder and catalyst for RE3D. And so RE3D, at its core, is a social enterprise. We're a spinoff of our time at NASA and volunteering with Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center. When we came up with an idea to help enable people globally to be able to innovate independently without the need for a long supply chain or dependence on another group. So for us, that looked like making big 3D printers that were affordable, and it translated into Gigabot. So Gigabot starts at the size of a toilet or 2-foot cubes and now goes as big as a shipping container at just under $10,000 to as big as your budget. We're honored now to be selling it in over 50 countries around the world, generating over $8 million in revenue, and have been supported as a bootstrap factory out of Houston, Texas, through support of groups like Bunker Labs that stepped in during multiple deployments when hurricanes hit our factory, or COVID pulled me away and the company was in crisis, to USPTO at CES and other federal groups that have just been a tremendous asset in helping us scale to be what was just an idea in our heads when we were working at NASA to now a global company that's also supported my career and others as an officer. Most recently, we're known for modifying our printers to be able to print directly from shredded garbage. We see that as a way to further increase the accessibility. So we're really pleased to share that we've been doing that, and also active in the PPE, so making face shields and tension relief bands and ventilator components for NASA and other things that were of need when the pandemic hit globally. We've been working alongside our customers to help mobilize resources around where our customers are, as well as our 3 locations in Houston, Puerto Rico, and Austin, to first support healthcare providers, and now in partnership with Impact Hub, we're working on a campaign called PPE for the People. So we're distributing personal protective equipment to people who are at risk of COVID and small businesses who need to open safely. So if you're a small business and you need free PPE, please sign up for PPE for the People with Impact Hub. And regardless of wherever you are in your 3D printing journey, we would love to get to know you, show you around a virtual tour of our factory, or to have you speak or participate in an upcoming online workshop.
Okay, Samantha, thank you very much for introducing yourself. And I should have noted up front that you, as you indicated, you are an officer in the Air National Guard, which makes what you do even more exciting, I would imagine. So thank you very much for being on the panel here today. So James, please introduce yourself to the panel and to the audience.
Yeah, hey, so luckily I know just about everybody on the panel, so good to see everybody. Mike, what's up, man? Hey, no. Anyways, hey, to everybody that's out there, my name is Jim Raybuck. So I'm also a dual hatter. On the weekends, I get to play the Deputy Innovation Officer for the Texas Military Department. So what that means is I help soldiers at the end of the day solve interesting problems. And sometimes those problems lead to interesting companies that are led by people like Samantha, Blake, Brad. But on my day-to-day job, I actually work for an organization you guys might know. It's called the Pentagon. They do some really interesting things. So under the Office of the Secretary of Defense, I work for an organization called the National Security Innovation Network. And what they do is they have this really fantastic set of programs where I go and meet with soldiers and help them really surface interesting problems that they might have. From one of them might be a 3D printing challenge where they need to create an object that might go on a Humvee that makes it so it can work, and that might operate in a austere environment where it's difficult to go get something manufactured or delivered, to software solutions where what does it look like to create better systems for our soldiers. So at Ensign, I get to surface those problems and then ultimately feed that into sometimes entrepreneurs, sometimes through academics. So like a university has fantastic programs and a lot of dollars that have been invested by the states, by the federal government, that can ultimately solve big challenges within autonomous systems, to AI, to hypersonics at Texas A&M. So Ensign really it's really the spearhead when it comes down to helping military units surface interesting problems that can be solved at the unit level. So I have an awesome job. I absolutely love it. Bunker Labs in particular, I have to give my hat off to them, as I would never be in this role if it weren't for them. And people like Samantha, who have been there before as CEOs and entrepreneurs, are the kind of people that step in and really support people who are trying to become entrepreneurs or have an idea for a company. So you have some really fantastic people on the panel today, and people that I respect dearly. So thanks for having me today.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. And I do know the Pentagon. I was in that building for 13 years before I came to SBA. So speaking of Bunker Labs, Blake, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, Larry, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for the work of the SBA during this time. We're sort of all in this together, and you and your team are leading the charge at one of the hardest times in history to be an entrepreneur. So it's exciting to see all to see Jim and to see Samantha. It's like a homecoming. I feel like we're back in Austin, Texas, loading a giant washing machine into the back of my pickup truck at South by Southwest. So it's so amazing to see the growth of Samantha and her company. So for those of you that don't know about Bunker Labs, we exist to connect, equip, and inspire military-connected entrepreneurs. So if you've got an idea and you want to grow a business, or you're in the process of growing a business, we want to help you do that through a couple of different ways. You can go to bunkerlabs.org and join the online community. You can test an idea with LaunchLab Online, or you can apply to our 2 incubator programs, Veterans in Residence, which are for earlier stage companies, and then CEO Circle for later stage companies. So, at a time right now where our country needs great leaders and great innovators, we're super excited to help bring that ecosystem together so that we can create more jobs and create more opportunity. But Larry, thank you for you and your team, and excited to be on the stage here with Brad and Jim and of course Samantha.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And so that leads to our final panelist, and that's Brad. Tell us a little bit about yourself and building momentum.
Sure. Thanks, Larry. And awesome to see everybody again. Yeah, Building Momentum in short is a problem-solving company. We got our start. I founded the company about 2015 after spending time, in think tanks as a consultant and just seeing technology not making it to the point of need. And so I felt really strongly about doing that. So I spent a lot of time on battlefields, running around being sort of their nerdy MacGyver, and then running around disaster zones doing the same thing. And that's where me and a lot of my crazy staff love spending their vacation time. So to have a problem-solving organization like I do, it's a really diverse mix of people, because if you're solving hard problems, we really believe that diversity is not just a nice to have, but it's a must-have. You have to have different perspectives and sort of different ways of thinking about problems. So we have PhD engineers and mechanical engineers, electrical engineers on staff. We also have people that were theater directors, and I have an actor, and people that just come from very weird and different walks of life, so that we can solve problems. And we do this all over the world now. So we kind of have three things that we do: is we think, build, and teach. So we spent a lot of time prototyping. In fact, COVID-19, we ended up making something like 34 brand new technologies in 19 different areas. Not intending to, wasn't the plan, but it just happened to be the case after everything went sideways with COVID. And so we pivoted a lot from our training business model to that. And when you have a staff that is extremely diverse, you can do things like that. So we were only in my basement 2.5 years ago, and now I think we're getting close to 30. We're like 27 people on staff in a 30,000 square foot makerspace here in Alexandria, Virginia. And a lot of that is just sort of moving through all of this insanity and just trying to hold on for dear life when you can. But now I'm starting to get all philosophical, and I was just trying to introduce the company, so let me get back to that. That's what Building Momentum does. And I'm also the chairman of the board and the founder of a nonprofit called Athena Response. And we've been doing some stuff out of that recently too, where we're giving away things like free desks to kids who don't have desks in their homes. And that also funds a lot of our disaster response. So in fact, if you want to donate to any of that stuff, go to athenaresponse.org and you can see some of that right now. But anyway, that's Building Momentum, and that's Athena Response. I'm Brett.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Welcome to the panel. And thank you also for showing the audience another way to look at diversity. Because as you pointed out, getting diverse opinions and thoughts, do lead to really great outcomes. So I have a question that I'll start off, and this question is for all the members on the panel. So I guess, Brad, since you and I are speaking, I'll let you answer first. But can you talk about how your experience in the military translates into what you're doing now? And how did your military experience affect what you decided to take on in your business?
Yeah, that's I've been thinking a little bit about that question, and I don't think it's anything magical. I don't think for me at least, I was a Navy officer, was an EOD SWO, and I think it's just the ability to sort of like get up when you have that pit in your stomach, it's going to be just a rough day. And at least for me, small business was like that for the first several years. It's just like, today is just going to be a rough day. And it's going to be largely disheartening. And it's going to be, knowing that you can make it through those moments, because in the military, I think they teach sort of that sustainment through those moments, whether it's going through different types of training or it's being deployed, you're kind of gutting out some of that stuff. And I don't know if there are very few people in small business don't go through that gut out phase. And actually, I think I'm still probably going through it now. And I think the military, and especially in COVID, right? We all had to gut it out in COVID. And still are. And I think the military teaches you that you can do those things, right? You've developed that confidence that you can wake up and sort of gut it out. Anyway, maybe not the best answer, but that's what I'm going with.
All right. Well, thank you for that, James, or Jim rather. Same question for you. Talk about your experience in the military, how you translated it into what you're doing now, and how did it affect your decision to take on the business that you're doing?
Yeah. So I think I'll go back to the story, and maybe this is the best illustration of it. Is back in 2016, I thought that I was the next great entrepreneur that was going to come out and create this really cool technology. All of a sudden, you get smacked in the face, and you realize you don't know jack squat when you come out of the military about software. You're like, I'm going to create this really great company. You begin learning, like there's something to be said for successful entrepreneurs who understand the market that they're pursuing. They have a strong understanding about the technology behind it, and then they also have the grit. Now, when I look at it took me a while after leaving the military to find kind of what's next. And for me, what's next is I don't consider myself somebody I may go start a business one day. I've tried it before, and I think I'll always have that idea. But I know that number one is I know I have a unique insight into the military now, and I know that I can understand that market and I can build off of that market because I ultimately can empathize with them. I understand the problem sets. I can navigate how to implement solutions with them. So I think that one of the things that I've learned is that I can go and learn a new market right now, and I absolutely trust and am confident in that. However, I think that I've found a passion and a mission that's aligned with supporting, whether it's a military member supporting our active duty members and developing companies, or helping others who might have an idea that's applicable. So for me, what that really is the military experience directly impacted making the choice to go work for Ensign. And ultimately, if I go look at starting a business, the very first market I'm going to turn to look to building a product for will be for either veterans or for active duty members. So hopefully that helps provide some context.
All right. Thank you. Same question for you, Samantha. Your military experience and how it translates into what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think like the other two panelists, sometimes it's a little bit squishy. I would say, sometimes I get asked this question in terms of being an officer and a leader in the Air Force, and then also leading a company. And I can honestly say I don't consider myself a leader, and I'm definitely still learning and probably failing more than I'm succeeding. But I think that there are, for context, I enlisted when I was 29 in my lunch hour at NASA. And didn't have the privilege to go to boot camp, but I have gone to officer school and then had to do a captain training we call SOS in the Air Force. And in both those experiences, the Air Force likes to run you through a series of like social experiments, so you can identify how you think and how others think. And what they're really trying to do is help you with pattern recognition. Also, they intentionally put you in scenarios where you can't do everything well. And that's really tough, like for people that like to get everything right, like me. What it does do is it teaches you how to practice and to build confidence in saying, I can't say this was the best decision, but I know it was a good one, and it's the one we're going to take so that I can work with my team to fulfill a mission. And I think those practicing that probably serves me and my team in my civilian job and our factory very well, because when you are running a factory, you manufacture it with your own hands without investment capital in the United States, and you're building the world's biggest, cheapest 3D printers, which seem counterintuitive. Actually, I'm not supposed to say cheap. They are very high quality, affordable. They have 1,000+ parts each. There's just so much to do, and we offer lifetime customer support. So for every unit we sell in 50+ countries, we are making a commitment to a relationship that, we've been selling now for 7 years. So, potentially as long as I'm around. So, there's just an endless amount of work that needs to be done. And I think being in the Air Force helps me practice how I learn to set priorities. The other thing that maybe it's due to the flying culture, but the military does well, is we like to make lists and checklists. And that translates really well into a manufacturing environment because we have to make SOPs. And, you know, the Air Force's first value is, actually, I almost screwed that up. One of the 3 top values is excellence in all we do. And, you know, that's something that we take to heart in our company as well. So I think it has to do with, you know, core values, really focusing on the mission, understanding how to prioritize stuff, and being okay with just letting things go. And then finally, I would say it's helped in like just staying really pragmatic. This is my second venture, and I think in my first one I was more emotional, and this one, you know, I think the military training has been really good and saying, well, it could always be worse, you know. And I have so much to be thankful for, to be in a country where I can fail every single day with a group of amazing humans to try and accomplish a mission and a dream. And that is just, as a woman in the United States, away from home, it's something I don't take lightly. So I'm incredibly thankful.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And Blake, your time in the Marine Corps.
All right.
How did that experience translate into what you're doing now, and helping you decide on paths forward in what you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, following the lead of those 3, it's tough, but I had the lamest career in Marine Corps history, so I'm actually still trying to make up for it, and trying to add some value to this country and pay back the taxpayers for the experience I had in the Marines. In 2008, I was training, thinking I was going to be an infantry officer, and I busted my hip and foot, and so, you know, I went from one day training to the next day, you know, being a training officer, and then eventually writing orders for, you know, for my buddies to go over and fight this war that I was watching on the news. So when I got out, I felt like I hadn't done my job. And I think, you know, as I realized it, I think we all feel like that to some degree, and that we left something on the table. So I think I'm, you know, the experience in the Marine Corps, you know, it led me to just be hell-bent to figure out a way to continue to serve. And, you know, the way that I can do that now is as an entrepreneur. So I might not be able to take a rifle up a mountain anymore, but we can work with a team of really amazing leaders to bring communities together to do that. I think it's, you know, we have a couple of values at Bunker around extreme ownership, getting it done and working smart. And, you know, I think the Marines embody this like violent execution of the plan as it is, or the 70% solution. You know, it's great to like have a really, really wonderful plan. It's another thing to get something done. And that translates well into the world of an entrepreneur, because it's sort of counterintuitive. You need to get your, you know, your ugliest, most affordable product out into the marketplace right away, so you can get real feedback on it. And like the intent is like, and that's hard because, you know, if you're thinking about starting a business, you're like, okay, I'm going to go put together this great plan, and then I'm going to like research, you know, all this, and then I'm going to finally get it out once it's built. But we, you know, that's how I lost a lot of money on my first venture in Austin, Texas, because we built this big software thing that nobody wanted. I could have tested it for free with PowerPoint and FaceTime. So I think it's like taking that extreme ownership, being okay with failure, and you know, knowing that like you can't do it all, and you've got to build a team around you to be successful. And then it's just like, get it out the door, ship it, send it, like get feedback, because it's too easy to sit on things and wait for, you know, the perfect day or the perfect thing. And you know, if the Marines taught me anything, it's just like, just figure it out, Hogan, figure out how to get it done. So, but yeah, I'm still trying to make up for it. Hopefully we'll do that now.
Well, thank you for that. I have a Marine on staff here, so I'm going to run some of your points by him. Yeah, I'll get back with you with his feedback.
Yeah, just tell him it was due yesterday.
All right, thank you. I want to turn to Jim with a question. So as veterans transition and they're looking to develop products or identify an innovative solution to a problem, what are some of the pieces of advice you could provide them?
I think the number one is go talk to people. Get out of your room, get out of your head, and talk to every single person that you think might be within your target market. I guess within Ensign, I spend a lot of times working with university students who are trying to help military members solve interesting problem sets. And the number one challenge for them for the first 6 weeks is that everybody just wants to go to a solution first rather than saying, an example is we've been talking about an interesting drone and everybody's so focused on the hardware. What it ends up just being, people wanted a little bit more transparency in what they were buying. And the idea is the more you go ask questions, the more you can get to the root cause of what something actually is, because our assumptions are often wrong at the very beginning. So if I were giving advice to anybody starting a business, I think that from what I've seen is go ask people, like get out of your head of being like embarrassed about talking to people about this, and you might get surprised.
Okay. Any other thoughts from any panel members on advice for prospective entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would say two things. We give a talk sometimes on rapid prototyping in Puerto Rico, and it's called "It's Okay to Be Ugly." And if you look at the very first photo we shared of Gigabot, our printer on Kickstarter in 2013, it is not attractive. Like, the electrical box is on the ground. There are exposed wires, and we're like, this is the future. But what it did is, by taking the risk of showing a prototype that was only 8 weeks old that we photographed in my co-founder's living room, was it invited this whole community outside of our grandma and our friends and significant others and our neighbors to say, this is great, or that really sucks. And we saw it on Reddit, real time. And it was, to Jim's point, it's a great opportunity to kind of get outside of your head, because as soon as people touch or interact or see your idea, they're seeing that product in terms of themselves, and they're interpreting it from themselves. And that's really all that matters. And then you're just supporting, their vision. So I would say, one, it's okay to be ugly. Two, if you're not ready to take the plunge into like crowdfunding or subjecting yourself to Reddit, what you can do is take part in either Veterans in Residence, through Bunker Labs, where they walk you through this process. If you're early stage, or if you're a little bit further along, apply for CEO Circle. We shamelessly participate in both Austin and Houston, and really value not only the feedback that people from other subsets of our community can provide that are also have a military nexus, but hearing them, just building the friends and the relationships that you need, because you need someone to cry with and laugh with along the way, because it is an adventure. So find your tribe. And it's okay to be ugly.
Okay, so I would say to the other panel members, feel free to jump in at any time if you want to add to a response. But
Larry,
okay, go ahead.
Just real simple. Keep your day job while you're building your dream job, right? I mean, Samantha is still active. I think. Our founder, Todd Connor, just came out with a book, The Third Shift Entrepreneur. And, I really call it evidence-based entrepreneurship, where you're moving forward because you have real evidence from customers. If Damon John can be waiting tables at Red Lobster while growing his business, I think all of us can continue to keep our day job. So I think it's a myth that you drop out of college and and then you're on the cover of Fortune or Forbes. I think most folks are they're in their 40s, they've got families, they're doing other things. So I would say don't burn the ships right away.
All right. Thank you for that. Now, speaking of not burning the ships and keeping your day job, the next question I want to pose to the panel talks about feasibility. So, for our audience that's thinking about, creating, if you will, how do you go about determining whether your ideal is feasible before you get too far down the road? So I guess, Blake, we can start with you if you have any thoughts on that.
Sure, I'll make it quick, and I'd love to hear what Brad's thoughts are, because I feel like that's really what they're doing. So I'll just speak from personal experience. So we started a company called Breakaway Safety Solutions, and sadly, after the shooting in Las Vegas, I'm here in Nashville, and the Country Music Association festival was coming up, and an Army Green Beret who was in charge of Jason Aldean's security team got a group of entrepreneurs and artists and innovators together to say, how do we protect CMA Fest? The Marine in me said, well, if we got everybody pinned up, why don't we just make emergency exits? So CMA said, can you build it? And I said, look, I don't know how to build anything. But we figured it out, and we built a really, really ugly steel gate that was like, pretty janky. And if you stepped on it wrong, you might get cut. But it gave the folks at CMA a real thing to look at to see, would this solve your problem? And then we quickly iterated on that and have now built this patent pending emergency exit system that's protected over 200,000 or evacuated over 200,000 people. And, we did that because we couldn't fake it, because we had no industry knowledge. We had no music knowledge. We didn't have, event security knowledge. We just listened to what their problems were, and then built something and got it in front of them really quickly. And then asked them, what keeps you up at night? How do you want to pay for this? How much do you want to pay for it? How do you want it delivered? So it was just very rudimentary, but I'd love to hear what Brad's thoughts are. And I think you've probably got a more sophisticated approach to going about it. So.
There's no way, Blake, that I am more sophisticated. So we'll just lay that out there right now.
Fair.
I'm in a t-shirt. So the way we do it is, and I know this is a little bit of a trope, but we understand the problem. We try to get our best grasp on the problem. And that's why we go all around the world. That's why if there's something bad going on the planet, you'll probably find me and my team there. And it's because that's how you have to immerse yourself in that space to really understand the problem before you can even start with solutions. And sort of the major disadvantage / advantage of COVID is that it just descended upon us locally. So we, have this massive maker space that we could pull from. So once you sort of get the problem, COVID's bad and we need to protect people and those types of things, I think the next thing that we practice really hard here is that you got to be able to kill off your best idea. And that is not something that comes naturally to anybody, especially not an entrepreneur. We talk about solving problems with your heart, and that's how I've run this business. We always back in the money later after we start running after something that we believe in. And I feel like to solve a problem, you have to sort of back in some of that later. But every problem solving session that we have, we say, we're going to do this again later, and we're going to take this idea that we think we have, and we're going to rip it up and start all over again. And you got to be honest with yourself when you do that, because I think people have these predilections of we're mostly there, and we just need to tweak these little things. But truly go through the exercise before you kick out any of these feasibility concepts, before you start making something, is tear it back down and build it back up conceptually. And then the last part is build it really fast. I think what Blake and what Samantha and many of us are talking about is, I like what she said, which is ugly works. Thank goodness, or I wouldn't be allowed on this phone call, this video call. But if you can get to making it fast, which is another skill you got to learn, but get there, then you'll go, okay, did this answer the questions? Are we adding value to the solution? And you just, again, be honest with yourself. That's the hardest thing to do in small business, it'll expose all of your weaknesses, which is fantastic in some ways and terrifying in others. But you got to be honest with those weaknesses. So anyway, I have sermonized too long. Your fault.
Those are good. That's a Good response. And, you know, the audience, we want people to hear everything. All of you are successful. We want to know how you think. I know the last time we got together, Samantha, you had some pretty interesting thoughts on feasibility as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan again of prototyping really fast and then giving it to the community to take from there. The other way that what makes us unique, and I don't know if we should be talking about it on the USPTO call, but is that we are open source. So we have the advantage of being able to share our drawings and our firmware at different stages of development and designs to allow the community to contribute. Now, if you choose to get a patent, which is great, I have 3 on the wall here for my first company. The other way that you can solicit input is for us, we release products either through pre-orders, through crowdfunding, or through the SBIR program, Small Business Innovation Research, which is a great way to get some resources to take your idea to commercialization. I would say there are many federal agencies, I think there's 11 now, please correct me on that, participate. And we've done 2 and have 2 more pending from 2 different agencies, and they all have their own flavor, if you will, and rules. Some only require a couple pages up front and they give you feedback. Some make you do 15 or more pages of writing up front. But what all of them do is it forces you to write down your idea. So, you know, I'm in 3D printing, so it's easy for me to, you know, 3D print this rocket here from recycled water bottles to show you something that I could print from recycled water bottles or the chair I'm sitting on. But what might take me more time is to, you know, to file for all the codes I need to submit to an application, and to draft a commercialization plan, and to do a business model canvas. But all of those things are going to help you when you apply for other stuff later, whether it's a business line of credit or a loan. And it's just helping you formalize as a company. And those exercises of having to put together, you know, descriptions and images and slide decks are also really helping you, to Brad's point, tear down your idea mentally and rebuild it, and then say, what can I do myself? What do I need to get help doing? And how much money is that really going to take me? I would say times it by 2.5, because you always lowball how much time it's going to take and how much money it takes. But I would definitely encourage individuals to reach out to the Small Business Innovation Program. I've seen Tom here online has already shot me an email for a project he's working on, so we look forward to chatting later. But if you want more feedback on SBIR, you know, Re3D, our team is happy to share experiences. But I think whether it's SBIR or other grants, or, you know, programs like Bunker Labs, there are a lot of resources out there, again, for you to get to feasibility and or maybe get some resources. Finally, I would say that one thing we like to do is we maintain forums online for our customers. And then when we release a product in beta form, we then try to hold monthly webinars for that product, so anyone that buys it can get together. So right now our beta product is Gigabot X, which is this 3D printer that allows me to make that rocket from shredded up water bottles. Well, it's a very new technology that we know people are going to break all over the world. So once a month, whether you're in the Philippines or France or the US, wherever you are that recently acquired one, you can get together and tell us where we screwed up or how you're hacking it, so that we can make sure that the next unit that goes out the door is really optimized to what the customer wants.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. You know, you mentioned resources, and that's a perfect segue over to the next question. I'll direct it at Blake. And so, Blake, what resources do you recommend for veterans looking for help with either starting their business or getting their product off the ground?
Yeah, well, thanks, Larry. Yeah, so there are a lot of amazing organizations out there that are helping, to include the SBA and Boots to Business and SCORE. So I would say we take an ecosystem approach to it. So we believe that you should be engaged with lots of different programs and lots of leaders and advisors. At Bunker Labs, you can join bunkerlabs.org and get immediately connected to the Bunker Online community. There are 4 programs that you can engage in. One, so if you're at the earliest stage and you're testing an idea and you want to go from that first idea to your first invoice, I'd encourage you to check out Launch Lab online at bunkerlabs.org. If you're in the stage where you're wanting to, you know, you're sequestered in your own like Zoom world right now, and you'd like some outside connection, we run a series of events called Bunker Connect, where it's about providing real thought leadership and the opportunity to connect with fellow entrepreneurs in a very structured way. And then Samantha mentioned the two incubator programs. So Veterans in Residence is a 6-month program. It's a partnership with WeWork, and that's about going from you've got some traction and some users and revenue to blowing the thing out of the water. And then we've got a 12-month mastermind around CEO Circle. So once you've got employees and you've got revenue, and now you really need that trusted network. And I mean, it really boils down to CEO therapy. You've got that group there. So I'd encourage you to check out that bunkerlabs.org. For those, if you've not done it, coming up November 10th is going to be the Military Influencer Conference. So that's them calling right now. So that's a really great opportunity. Damon John is the keynote for that. So I think you can just go to, I don't know what the website is. If you Google Military Influencer Conference, you can figure it out. But so I would say take advantage of that. Don't allow this time to be a time of sort of being stagnant. It's hard. Like, I'm an extrovert, so I'm like, I want to be doing this in person. But there are lots of great resources out there, and take advantage of them. And if we can help at Bunker Labs, we want to be able to help you do that.
Yeah, thank you. That's one of the things we tell veteran entrepreneurs, prospective entrepreneurs. We encourage them to partner, and like, it's one thing, like when we're in uniform, we're used to being on the team, accomplish the mission together. Then we get out of uniform, we want to go solo, and it's a lot of times you end up going south when you go solo. So we encourage our clients and people, the veteran entrepreneurs that we work with, to seek out resources and partnerships and things of that nature, to include participating in discussions like we're having here today. So I have one final question that I guess I can run, unless, I'm sorry, was somebody getting ready to add?
Larry, yeah. So I was going to say, I actually just shared, this is something I went and collected with a ton of folks. So if you guys look, I just shared a Google Doc. You can't edit it because I don't want anybody messing it up, but I have a list there, and it has, I think, let me see how many programs we got. There's a lot of programs out there. We got, let me see, there are 162 programs. So if you go to that link, just a bunch. It's open. Some of them cost money, some of them don't. But that is a link for you. But I think in my opinion, I think that you partner with Bunker Labs and do everything through them and leverage for continuity's sake. And then you can leverage a lot of these other programs outside of it. So anyways, hopefully, I just wanted to plug that in so that people knew it was out there.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I do have one final question, and I guess we can go around the horn on this one. So now that you're in business and you're up and running, what do you know now that you wish you had have known when you got started? So I'm looking at you, Jim, right now on the screen. So I guess we can start with you first.
All right, let's go. So let me just rephrase the question. What do I wish I would have known when I started?
Right.
Okay. That's a good question. There's a lot of things that I wish I would have known. I think ultimately is, I think that I wish I would have just been more open about ideas in the very beginning. I think that it's getting a spoonful of humility in opening up kind of like your ideas to being challenged. Like it's such a positive outcome when you just get into the mindset of like, your idea is not going to be great in the beginning, and getting people to scrutinize you as a gift, for people to give you feedback, and maybe bad feedback on your idea, is a gift and view it as a gift, because it's something that is so valuable that somebody's like, hey, I think you can improve your product, and to be thankful for that. I think that that's something that the very beginning, had I done that, I think that it would have been very helpful, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Other panel members?
Yeah, I'll just throw in there 2 quick things that I wished I'd learned. For one, doing this, at least for me, isn't as formulaic as I would have thought. I came from Silicon Valley out here to DC and thought there was a formula and you had to have a business model and blah, 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 and how to get funding. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that for me personally, I thought I had to learn all of this formulaic stuff. And actually, at the end of the day, it was the passion that rings through, and then you sort of like figure out the other things. And that was what helped me do that. Then the other thing was, I always thought, we started in my basement. We went like almost completely broke as a family. I had my 3rd kid when I started this, made all the bad decisions that you hear about in horror movies. And I thought, it's going to plane off. It's going to plane off. Like, I'm going to get to a point where I'm driving a Tesla packed inside another Tesla, and it'll be like, great. And the reality is, at least from my experience, it doesn't plane off. You need to enjoy the experience, because once you get to like some level of revenue, you just keep going and you keep going and keep going. So I've learned to just like sit down in it a little bit and enjoy like all the parts of the craziness. And yes, it's better to be out of my basement, but it's still like you got to enjoy that whole process. So anyway, wish I learned that earlier. Saved me a bunch of headaches.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I often find 7 years into this company, which is a lot longer than I'd ever thought I'd be working in a job, that I'm nostalgic for moments I never truly appreciated. And they were all the messy moments of that first year or 2, sitting around with beer or on the ground, trying to figure out how we're going to stand up an inventory management system, or how we were going to unscrew up an issue at a border the first time we shipped to a country, and trying to figure out how to get a hold of the ambassador, like all the stuff that seemed just ridiculous and annoying and overwhelming. Like that was the fun, that's the fun part, and you always look back and feel that way. So I'm trying to do a better job now at that. And to Brad's point, like, and I've noticed this as an officer as well, the problems, they just change. Like, it's always there, and that's the beautiful chaos, or I call it legalized gambling with startups. And it's constantly evolving. It's the same as when I was a lieutenant and I realized I didn't know what way to put my rank on when I showed up at the gate the first time. As I go to pin on major later this year, I've got a whole new set of problems with the team and a reorg and paperwork that I had never anticipated, and it's still that same feeling, but it just changes, and it's the same way with the company. The other thing I would leave you on is when I first commissioned, I did my first exercise, and there was this Navy admiral, I wish I could remember his name, and he came in and he was just asking every dumb question. He was in charge of this whole exercise, and it turns out, like, for what he did in the Navy, never related to a North American disaster response contingency. I think we were like doing an earthquake or something in the middle of America. It was just way outside of his field. And so he was asking questions even I knew an answer to as a non-prior enlisted. And he pulled me aside after 2 or 3 days of doing this. And he said, "Lieutenant," he's like, "have you seen me ask a lot of dumb questions?" And I'm thinking, "Self, is this a trick question?" And I was like, "Oh, sir, it did seem like it was pretty basic stuff." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "What I've learned and what someone told me when I was early on in my career, and you could translate that to your startup, is," he says, "you can be stupid for a day or be stupid for the rest of your life." So he said, "I encourage you," he knew I was founding a company in parallel, "whether it's with your company or in whatever leadership position or military position you find yourself in, don't be afraid to be dumb and ask questions." So that's what I would say.
All right, well, thank you for that. I guess I see Blake.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great way to round it out with the Marine not being afraid to ask stupid questions or be the dumb one in the room. So, I mean, what I wish is I would have started a plaid, shirt company with Jim. I think we've got something going here.
I was going to mention the exact same thing to you.
Right? Yeah.
I think yours is a little sharper than mine.
Yeah, right. Well, the Marines do a better uniform. So But yeah, you can go to jimandblakesflannels.com. They'll be available 3D printed by Samantha here shortly. I mean, honestly, listening to all this, it's great perspective, for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear from other leaders. Like, I took over the helm of Bunker on the 1st of March, and the world was a very different place 2 weeks later. So I think part of that right now is a learning curve of like learning how to lead virtually and how to serve. And I think it requires a lot more grace and a lot more humility and over communication. It's really easy right now to take something out of context in an email or in a text or et cetera. So I think, it's the basics of like loving each other and leading with trust and respect for each other. I think, those are the things where, I think when you're starting, you're so focused on like your, like, I don't know, the financial plan or what, like sort of the X's and O's of business. But it comes down to like the basic troop leading steps of like being a good servant, being there for your team, like leading them how they want to be led, not how morphing to their styles versus the other way around and requiring them to mold to you. So I think it's, a lesson in inquiry and humility, which as a Marine is a steep learning curve for me. So, but appreciate the opportunity to be here with all these leaders, and thank you, Larry, for putting us together.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I guess I want to say a special thanks to our panelists here. You've all been amazing. It's been really great meeting all of you. Thank you for your service and your continued service. This country runs on small business. We hear in the media all the time, corporate America, but 99.9% of companies in this country are small businesses. And so you're all doing amazing things. And now, hopefully I'm in your inner circle now as well. I want to thank Sean Wilkerson also for inviting me to moderate the panel. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Sean.
Well, thank you, Larry. I do have one question, though, before we move on from the panel. And Blake, I did get a question in about financial literacy programs for veterans. Are there any programs you know of that you can tell us about, or does Bunker Labs provide any financial literacy training for veterans?
Yeah, so as part of our Veterans and Residents program, that's a portion of it. We don't have sort of specific curriculum on financial literacy. I will say, though, that our great partners at JP Morgan Chase do have resources available on financial literacy. So I'd say to check that out. But one way to engage directly is joining the Bunker Online community and then posting those questions within that. And you've got groups of entrepreneurs and others that are there to kind of like jump in and answer that. So it's not like a readily available online course right now, but there are resources available to people in that Bunker Online community.
Awesome. All right. Well, Larry, thank you for moderating. And Jim, Brad, Samantha, Blake, thank you all for being part of our panel. You're doing so much great work, and I'm sorry we only have an hour to showcase, but as Brad said, what are we doing after this program? We're going to continue this discussion. We're going to have some additional programs. I hope you'll all be part of that. I know that Brad has put everyone on the hook for that, so I appreciate that, Brad. But I will thank everyone again. Thank you for your service, your contributions, and everything you're doing to make a difference in our communities. And for the veteran community specifically, I will say thank you once again and allow you to separate from the call as we prepare for our next panel. But I can't thank you enough, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to let you know that
As we
there's
set up for
actually
our next panel. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to let you know, if you go to Syracuse IBMF, there's free financial literacy courses through the University of Syracuse. So just for anybody that's listening.
Awesome. I will add that to our resources. Thank you. Well, as we get set up for our next panel, I'd like to remind everyone that we will be accepting questions for the presentation that we are doing at the time of the presentation. So if you have any questions, please look at your WebEx portal. To the bottom right of the screen, you will see a Q&A box where you can put your questions. If you've missed any part of today's presentation, don't worry. We will be putting this on our website for you to view later so that you can re-engage and re-inform yourself of any of the information that was on today's program. If for any reason you get disconnected during today's program, you can log back directly in. So please don't hesitate if you get kicked out of the system or if bandwidth is low. Please remember you can always come right back into the program presentation and we will pick up where we left off for you, but you can always view the presentations online after today on our website. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and get started with our next panel. Our next panel is our resource overview from USPTO. These are the services that we provide here at USPTO to help any inventors who are going through the process of either obtaining their intellectual property or looking for more information about intellectual property. And we're here to guide you through that process, to give you information, to support you, and help you find resources that are going to help you obtain your intellectual property for your business. Joining me on today's panel, I do have one colleague with me today, Nicholas McFall. Nick, if you're on the line, I'll go ahead and have you say hello. If you can take your video off mute, that might help.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Nick McFall.
Nick McFall is joining us from the Pro Bono team, so he'll be answering questions today related to free legal services and our law program. So I'll go ahead and start the program. And with that, I want to talk about the types of intellectual property that exist. There are 4 types of intellectual property that exist, and those are a patent, trademark, copyright, and trade secret. So what are those? How are they defined? Well, let's start with a patent. So a patent is a property right granted by the government of the United States of America to an inventor. This excludes others from making use or offering for sale or selling the invention throughout the United States or importing the invention into the United States for a limited period of time in exchange for public disclosure of the invention when the patent is granted. It has a limited term, it's territorial, so it's not worldwide, and that is what's available for a patent in the U.S. to help you understand a little bit more about a patent. Now, a trademark protects words, names, symbols, sounds, or colors that distinguish goods and services from those manufactured or sold by others, and it helps to indicate the source of the goods. Trademarks, unlike patents, can be renewed forever as long as they're being used in commerce. So that's a key part of that. As long as you are still doing commerce using that trademark, you can continue to apply for it as long as you're using it. A copyright protects the works of authorship, such as writing, music, and works of art that have been tangibly expressed. The Library of Congress registers copyrights, which last for the life of the author plus 70 years. You can use copyright symbols without registration, though there are several advantages to registering for your copyright. More information can be found on the copyright page. So if you log into www.uspto.gov, you can search for copyrights and it will connect you with information on how to get your application submitted for your copyright. Last but not least is a trade secret. This is information that companies keep secret to give them advantage over other competitors, such as the recipes for KFC, or the formula for Coca-Cola. You have to prove that you've been keeping it a secret in order for it to be a trade secret. So those are the 4 types of intellectual property that we help support programs and provide services for. So moving on to our next slide, I want to talk about where you can find help when you're looking for information about those services. We have 4 regional offices and our headquarters. The United States Patent and Trademark Office operates a headquarters and our Eastern Regional Outreach Office here in Alexandria, Virginia, with our 4 additional regional offices across the nation. Combined, these provide inventors, entrepreneurs, and small businesses a USPTO presence in every time zone. Staff in our offices work closely with intellectual property practitioners and services, startups, and job growth accelerators. They also collaborate with local science, technology, engineering, and mathematics organizations on outreach and educational programming. Those offices are located in Denver. We have one in Detroit, San Jose, which is our Silicon Valley representation, and Dallas, Texas. So if you are in any of those areas, you can make appointments and stop by for support as an inventor, or you can contact them through our website, again, which is www.uspto.gov. If you have questions or want support, our website is a great place to go to get information. You can find information related to specific topics or services you want to know more about just by going into the search function and putting in your question or your item that you're searching for. If you're new to IP and you want to find help in your area, our website provides you a great resource for that. No matter where you live in the country, you have access to support near you, and we'll be going over some of those resources in this presentation today, but you can find services throughout the nation on our website for assistance in filing, free legal assistance, learning how to do a proper search when you're looking for information on if your idea exists or not, finding additional events like the one we're hosting today, but hosted around the country, or you can network with other like minds that may help you in your journey through innovation. We encourage you to use this resource because it's available to you in your area. There are opportunities for you to meet with people locally instead of having to go either to our regional office or to our headquarters here in Alexandria, Virginia. There's always an option to help you find support. One of those tools that we use through our website is our Inventor and Entrepreneur Resources page. This page is a hub for information to help individuals with questions find resources available to them to help them through the process. If you have questions related to the patent process or related to finding out if your idea should be put into a patent, if you have questions about what that process is and how to file, they'll help you with that. So you can find all of that information about if you need a patent, if you need a trademark, what resources are available to you to support you in that quest. So utilize this page. It's a valuable page for our inventor community because it gives you so much information about all of our free services and resources. A lot of people don't realize that what we provide are free services to help people get into the filing system. So if you have any questions, you can start here and it will direct you to the right people. We also have what's our Pro Se Assistance Inventor Program. This is for people filing without an attorney and going through the process on their own. There's an office dedicated to helping answer questions about filing. Now, they don't offer legal advice or determine if it's patentable, but they can provide answers to questions about the process, tips for drafting your claim, and give insight to what examiners are looking for when they review an application. The Pro Se Assistance Program provides outreach and education to applicants, also known as Pro Se applicants, who file patent applications without the assistance of a registered patent attorney or agent. USPTO employees cannot give legal advice. However, they can help by giving increased assistance and resources for independent inventors and small business communities. The program aims to increase the quality of Pro Se applications and assist Pro Se applicants with making informed decisions regarding their patent applications. Next, we have our Trademark Assistance Center. Much like the Pro Se program, the Trademark Assistance Center is the main support center for all customers from first-time filers to legal professionals and experienced trademark applicants. They can answer your question on a variety of trademark topics. So if you have any questions related to general information about registering a trademark, trademark literature and publications, updates on the status of a trademark application or registration. They can also answer case-specific questions about an application or registration. They help to navigate the electronic filing system, which is our online filing system we use to get information and your patent or trademark into the system, but they focus on the trademark side. They help in finding information on our website about the meaning of trademark terms and concepts and how to start the application process, application and registration timelines, and many more things. I won't go into detail, but again, they can't give legal advice. And this is something that we emphasize because we don't want to provide you with legal information because we are not the legal experts. We are just there to help you submit the application and provide you best practices for filing. With that, we also have available to people throughout the United States our Patent and Trademark Resource Centers, known as the PTRC. The PTRCs are located in almost every state. You can find these locations on our website for the nearest one near you. They're usually located in a library on a university campus or a major city library. And at these libraries, the librarians can provide assistance and access to resources that we use here at USPTO to search for patent information and prior art. So if you're looking for assistance on how to learn the search process, you can go to these libraries and learn from the librarians how to do a better search. They can direct you to information and explain the application process and fee schedule. They demonstrate how to use search tools or for either a patent or a trademark. They can show you a directory of local patent attorneys who are licensed to practice before the agency. They offer classes on intellectual property, which vary by location, or you can log into one of our programs here. They offer assistance on how to do historical research on patents and trademarks. They can show you how to track current research by company or a nonprofit, and they can help you find assignee information and much, much more related to patent searching. So if you have any questions, you can use this map to identify which one is closest to you and get the support you need. All right. The Patent Prioritized Patent Examination Program is our fast-track utility and patent application. So the number of patents, this starts on the fiscal year. So this just started over on October 1st. It's available for utility, plant, and continuing patent applications and requests for continued examinations. It's not available for international, design, reissue, or provisional applications or in reexamination proceedings. There's no loss in the examination quality. The number of prioritized examination requests that may be accepted in a fiscal year is 12,000. The requirements for the program are that you have no more than 4 independent claims, 30 total claims, and no multiple dependent claims, and electronically file for your utility application and pay your fees. You can see the patent dashboards for current pendency averages and find out more information about Track 1, which will allow you to prioritize your patent examination. MyUSPTO is a one-stop shop for your portfolios. You can create your own account here for a patent or a trademark. Once you file, you can access the content of those applications all in one area. You can tag and track your applications and get notifications sent to you. So my suggestion would be for you to log on to myuspto.gov, set up your account, and that will help you through the process for your patent or your trademark and help you track everything that's going through. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who's going to talk to us more about the Pro Bono program and the law school program. So this is information that's going to help somebody who is looking for legal assistance who may qualify, and we'll cover all those details in this part of the presentation.
Hi, again, I'm Nick McFall. I'm with the Patent Pro Bono program, and also I am an examiner here at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So we're going to first start talking about the Patent Pro Bono program. The first slide.
Sorry about that.
Wrong.
There we go.
Sorry, my video stopped.
That's okay.
All right. Can I get the first slide? Or
You are set for the patent pro bono side.
yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I had control. Sorry.
That's okay.
So the Patent Pro Bono program is created as part of the America Invents Act in 2011, and it's created to assist financially under-resourced inventors and small businesses prepare, file, and prosecute patent applications. And prosecuting the patent application just means after you file it, an examiner like myself will look at it and have an action back and forth, and basically will come to the office and the applicant will come to an agreement, hopefully, as to whether or not we can issue the patent. This is accomplished via 21 independent nonprofit regional programs, and they cover all 50 states and DC and Puerto Rico. And to find out which program would cover you, you would go to uspto.gov/pro bono patent, and you would choose your state. When you go to that website, you'll see the map like what's on the screen now, and you simply click on your state, and there will be a link there, and it will take you directly to the regional program that is right for you. Now, the regional programs may cover one state, such as the Illinois program. You see it's purple, and it's the only shade of purple on there, or it may cover a region of multiple states. Like you see how Nevada, California, Oregon, and Alaska and Hawaii are all covered by one program. They are operated by nonprofits, universities, or bar associations. And just as a point of fact, they set their own guidelines, policies, and procedures, but they all are fairly similar. And they all hold to several general requirements. The first and probably the most important requirement is the gross household income. So as of right now, for the programs, you have to have an annual income of less than 3 times the federal poverty rate. And what that means in a little bit more simple term is that if you're a single person household, you can earn up to about $38,000 per year. And if you're a family of 4, you can have an income of up to $72,000 per year. I will say that if you are close to those limits, slightly above those limits, you should still go ahead and apply, because the calculations for some of the limits, especially if you have dependents and household members, vary slightly from program to program. And it's best to go ahead and apply and let them tell you that you don't meet the income limit. The second requirement is a knowledge of the patent system. And generally that can be demonstrated 2 different ways. The first way is that you can file a provisional patent with the USPTO. And a provisional patent is best described as sort of a placeholder patent. You get your filing date, which is important because that's the date at which you are assumed to have invented your invention. You get your filing date, and it's good for a year. And basically what that means is you can file your provisional, and then you have a year to file a non-provisional, and the non-provisional is what an examiner will look at. And again, if it meets all the requirements, it can be issued as a patent. And just so you know, there's no prototype necessary to file any patent application, a provisional or a non-provisional. If you can fully describe your invention, it's more than an idea, then you can go ahead and file your provisional. And if you qualify as a microentity, which I'll talk about a little bit later, the filing fee currently for a provisional application is $75. The second way you can demonstrate a knowledge of the patent system is to take the USPTO's online training course, and it's available in English and Spanish, and it will take you about an hour to an hour and a half to complete. Once you complete the course, you will get a digital certificate, and you can screenshot that or download it and provide that as proof that you have some knowledge of the patent system. And like I mentioned before, the requirement to go into the program is that you have to have an actual invention and not an idea. And the difference between that would be, an idea would be like, I would like a machine that makes bagels. That's an idea. Invention would be, this machine makes bagels. It has 4 widgets, 3 cogs, and 5 molds. And when you can fully describe what the machine actually is, how it functions, what parts it needs, that's an invention versus an idea. Some of the programs may charge a filing fee, of anywhere between $25 and $150. Again, you're going to need to check with the regional program that you would be working with to find out their exact fee. And that covers the screening and matching of applicants. And it also helps to sustain the program because these are nonprofits. The filing fees help to make sure that the program is available for future inventors and small businesses. And I will say that if you have filed a provisional patent as your method of demonstrating knowledge of the patent system, I would encourage you to, as soon as you file your provisional patent, go ahead and apply to your regional program. That's because if you were to get matched, the process generally takes it can take up to 6 months to get matched. And because the term or the provisional patent only lasts for 12 months, you want to make sure that there's enough time. So you want to apply to your regional program as soon as possible. Now, screening can take 1 to 2 months by itself. And again, 6 months for the complete process before you get matched, if you get matched with an attorney. And, I just want to put out there that just because you apply to the program doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get matched. The programs all try their very hardest to match everybody with a practitioner, but sometimes that's not possible. And you got to remember that the programs can't force an attorney to take a case. The attorneys choose the cases that they work on. The number one thing I'll say as far as matching goes is that you need to be an advocate for yourself. Nobody cares about your invention as much as you do, so make sure that you are on top of all your deadlines and everything like that. And, if you've applied to a regional program and it's been a month or two and you haven't heard anything, you should probably go ahead and give them a call just so you know if maybe they need some additional information or if there's something wrong with your application. If you get matched, I'm going to give you a few tips for working with your practitioner. A practitioner, again, is just going to be a patent attorney, possibly a patent agent. So one thing you should keep in mind is that patent attorneys' rates are generally around $350 per hour. And what that means is that you just need to use your time with them effectively. And ways you can do that is knowing the technical details of your invention. You need to know how it works, how to describe it in words, because that's what the patent attorney has to do. They take your drawings and they take your idea and they put it in technical, detailed words to explain it so you can have a strong patent application. You should know the market for your invention, sort of also the state of the art, or what are some other similar inventions. And you can do that. You can find prior art, which is just patent documents or other documents that show inventions that are similar to your invention. And you can see sort of where yours differentiates from what is the state of the art or what's currently available. And another thing you need to know is the novelty of your invention. Patents are issued on things that are new, novel, and non-obvious, meaning it's not something that is an obvious way to change something that currently exists. So if you know the novelty of your product, what makes it different? Why is your widget different than any other widget out there? That will help your attorney draft the strongest possible application for you and hopefully increase your chances of getting an issued patent. When you begin to work with a practitioner, they should offer an engagement letter, which is just another word for a contract. The contract will lay out the scope of services. Some attorneys that work for the pro bono program will offer you a full scope, meaning they'll help you draft your application all the way through issue, draft, file, and communicate back and forth with the office. Some attorneys will offer unbundled services or limited scope services, meaning they may help you draft your application, or they might help you with a response to an office action. So having a written engagement letter lets everybody know what is expected of both parties. It should also lay out any ancillary fees. The most common ancillary fee is the fee for a draftsperson to create any drawings that may be required for your application. Again, if you're capable of doing those yourself, you might not need a draftsperson, but you just need to know that that might be something that is required. And the attorney cannot donate other people's time. So again, you should be prepared to pay for that, and all of this should be laid out in your engagement letter. If the attorney doesn't offer you an engagement letter, you should ask for one, and that protects both of you. So, you just need to make sure that everybody's expectations are properly set. Another thing I like to lay out is that the inventor or the business is responsible for all USPTO fees. You shouldn't ask your attorney to advance those for you or pay them on your behalf. You should be prepared to pay for that. And right now, if you're a micro entity, for a full prosecution, that's from filing, search and examination on the office's part, and then the issue fee is around $755 for a micro entity. And I'll go ahead and talk about micro entity status right now. Basically, there are 4 requirements. One is that you have to qualify as a small entity, which is any nonprofit or any business with fewer than 500 employees. You can't be named as an inventor on more than 4 previously filed applications. And the way that works is that if you work for a large company and you invented things for that company, you didn't own any of those patents, those don't count towards your 4. So, don't worry about those. These are ones for which you currently have an ownership stake. And there's also an income requirement. However, if you qualify on income for the patent pro bono program, you'll necessarily qualify for microentity status. And the last thing is that anybody that's got an interest in this patent application, other inventors, the small business that maybe owns that, they also have to qualify for microentity status in order for the application to be considered filed by a microentity. Again, if you have any questions on this, the website below, uspto.gov/pro bono patents, that's going to be your best source for information. Again, you can see this map and go straight through to your regional program. If you have any specific questions, not of the non-legal variety, but specific questions about the patent pro bono program, feel free to email us at probono@uspto.gov. We monitor that email and we try and get you answers as soon as possible. So that's all I've got to say about the patent pro bono program, but I would like to tell you guys about another resource that we have available, and that is the Law School Certification Program. Law School Clinic Certification Program. This is a network of over 60 programs across the country, and they do provide nationwide coverage. And these are programs at law schools that can help with patents or trademarks, and some of them help with both. A lot of them have locality restrictions, and some of them can be for a city, a certain part of a state, or an entire state or a region. Some of them are nationwide. So when you go to uspto.gov/law school clinic, you'll see a list of all of the programs that work with us, and it will also say what areas of the country they serve. So again, there might be several that serve your region. You might have one that covers your local area, one that covers your state, your region, and then there's several nationwide programs. The programs are approved by the USPTO, and if you get accepted to one of these programs, you'll work with law students that are overseen by a practicing attorney. Generally, the programs can only help you with maybe 1 or 2 issues. They're not going to provide full scope services. So if you get accepted to one or when you inquire about one, you want to ask what they can help you with. Again, they might help you draft your application. They might help you with a response to an office action. But you just need to be sure about what you're getting. And a lot of times, if you don't qualify on income for the patent pro bono program, most of these programs don't have income limits. And just another fact is that the availability of the law school clinic program usually tracks with the school year. So you're more likely to be able to find help in the fall and in the spring than you would be in the summer. And also, because of the ongoing pandemic, because of COVID, a lot of the law students aren't on campus and some of the clinics aren't working. So availability may be reduced right now. But, it's always worthwhile, again, to check out the resource, to go on our website, click through to the program that you think might be able to help you, and send them an email, and they'll let you know what the status is of their program. That's all I have for right now. Thank you. And again, please, if you have any questions about anything I've asked you today, go to our website, or, like I said, email us at probono@uspto.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. So I've received a few questions in the question box about patent process, filing, and general questions related to patenting. What I want to direct you to is our Pro Se program, the Pro Se Assistance Program. If you email your questions to this email address, innovationdevelopment@uspto.gov, They will answer your questions and provide you with information to support you. I know that I had a question in the box about filing for a utility patent. Any general questions you have, they will help you with that. Again, the Pro Se Assistance Program is there to answer questions related to any part of the patent filing process that you may have. So if you have a general question to, do I need a patent, to I'm filling out the application, I need to write a better claim, or I've written a claim, I'd like somebody to review it and tell me if I need to streamline it or clean it up, they can review your application and assist you with those type of best practices. Again, they won't help you or provide legal advice, and they won't tell you if it's patentable, but they will help you through the filing process to look at your application and help you understand if it's written correctly, if you needed more information or less information, things that are going to help the examiner when they review the application to understand it better. Right now, I don't see any other questions in the box. Nick, did you have any other information that you wanted to provide related to the pro bono program? If anyone who is watching may be an attorney that wants to get involved, or any other information you'd like to provide?
We are always looking for volunteers to help out with the regional programs. And again, it's going to be the same information I gave to the inventors. If you're looking to volunteer, again, because it's a regional system, the best thing to do is go to uspto.gov/pro bono patents and click on the state that you live in and the region you live in and talk to the regional programs. They're fully independent from the patent office. We don't set what they do. And so we don't accept volunteer lawyers here at the patent office, but I know that all of the programs are always looking for more lawyers to help out inventors and attorneys. So please go to the Pro Bono Patents website and speak with the regional program that you think you'd be able to help out the best. And like I said, please don't be afraid to email the pro bono at uspto.gov. Likely it'll be me answering you. And so I love helping inventors, and I love helping you guys get through the system. I know that it's a very obtuse, it can be a very obtuse and sort of intimidating system. I'm an engineer, and that's why I started out. It took me a while to learn it as well. So any questions that you have, again, not going to offer legal advice, but any questions you have about the system, if it's about the pro bono system, please email us. And obviously the Inventors Assistance Center if you have questions about your patent. That's all I had.
And Nick, we had a question come in. What do you need to show for pro bono income level?
Okay. Yeah. So like I said, right now it's 3 times the limit, the federal poverty limit, and so that threshold right now is going to be around $38,000 for a single person, or $72,000 for a family of 4. So that's really what you're looking at. Again, if you have more dependents, that income limit goes up. So that's what it is right now. I do know, I guess since this is a veterans group, sorry, if you're in Illinois, the Chicago-Kent School of Law is one program that has a different limit for veterans. And for veterans, if you're in Illinois, you can have an income limit up to 5 times the poverty limit.
Great. All right. So we don't have any other questions coming in at this time. And I'll wait just a minute as we end out the program. But I just want to let each of you know, if you have any questions about today's program from the start to finish, you can reach out to us at innovationoutreach@uspto.gov. Those emails come to the Office of Innovation Outreach, and I help answer those questions. So if there's anything related to today's program that you may have missed or want more information, go ahead and email us there. We'll get back to you within 24 hours with an answer. And we're always available to help with any questions you may have related to resources at USPTO or Outreach. If you're interested in us providing further education for your organization, if you're part of an organization looking for more information about intellectual property or our pro bono program and pro se program, we're happy to work with you and provide you additional education. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and thank Nick for being on the call today. Nick, thank you for providing us the information on our pro bono program. And I'm going to close up the session with saying there are more programs available to each of you through our website at uspto.gov/events. We do have programs across the country that we participate in that are available to everyone, that are available online from our regional offices or from organizations we partner with to provide education and awareness. If you have any questions, like I said, about today's program, go ahead and reach out to us at innovationoutreach@uspto.gov, and know that today's program will be available on Facebook as it is being broadcast by Facebook Live. So you can immediately go to Facebook, which is our USPTO page at Facebook. We can provide you with that link. If you don't have Facebook, you don't need an account, but we'll provide you with a link to get you to that information and the video. We will be posting the videos to our YouTube page once they're edited with closed captioning, and those will be made available to you, and we'll send out an email reminder to everyone who registered for the program or logged in today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being part of our Veterans Program. And if there's any organizations out there that would like to be referenced or provide information for us to share with other people, please send us that information as well. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to having you at our next program. Thank you.